So then there's a second category of plants. They are called native plants. That is, they have evolved in a particular country or place over some centuries and centuries, and they are part of that ecosystem. So for such plants, they are called native plants. They are not invasive weeds, nor are they naturalized locals, but they evolved in that particular region. And the difference between these native species and invasive weeds is, invasive weeds have come in the last few hundred years, it might have landed up, whereas the native species, either it has landed up thousands of years back and settled in that region, or it has evolved in that region, but it is not exclusive to that region. For example, these trees like jackfruit, mango and all are there. It's a native species of India, but it also occurs in other regions like Singapore and Burma, and in a larger region. So a native plant is something that evolved in a particular place, country or region, but it is not restricted to only that place, but it also occurs in a wider region. So these native plants are the best option for a biodiversity garden. Because it supports all the surrounding life forms and all. And the local community means, I mean plants and other plants, insects, birds, animals, they all form an interdependent relationship with native species, and they all feed off and support each other and balance each other out. So invasive species are those that have recently landed up and then wreaking havoc. After a while they get naturalized and become gradually the local the biodiversity has to cope with them, and they become naturalized. And then the invasive weeds of one area can be natural residents of some other place. For example, there are many plants from Africa. They are native plants of Africa, but in India when they land up, they are invasive. So this trees like this cashew has come to India many years back. Portuguese and all brought it from, I think, South America, if I'm right, or Africa or somewhere, and then now it is there. You can find it in a lot of places. Many people don't even know that it's not an Indian plant at all. And so this for gardening purposes and from environment point of view, the native plants are the best. And then invasive plants are the most dangerous. And this naturalized plants, that is, they have come a few hundred years back. Now we have to live with them whether we like it or not, because they got naturalized here and you can't get rid of them also. So naturalized in a location is one category, native plants is one category, invasive weeds is one category, and the invasive weed becomes naturalized after a while. And these invasive species are the biggest threat to biodiversity because they have no competition whatsoever. This is an invasive species. This Acacia auriculiformis, something is called. This is recently introduced in India, say some 50 or 70 years back, or even later, by the authorities to stop fighting. So these invasive weed, this acacia for example, has become a very powerful invasive weed, spreading fast, dangerous. Don't fight now. Then there's a third category of plants which I'll cover in the next video. Those are called endemic species. That is, they don't occur anywhere else except in that particular region because they are so such niche players that they can't survive in new locations and all. And they are the most vulnerable. When these invasive weeds come, these endemic species are the first to go. And then the native species, their population comes back a little bit after a while. That is, at the first arrival of an invasive species, the native species population comes down, but invariably they recover after a while and they manage somehow. But these endemic species, they are usually very delicate and have the small range, and they just can't cope with any invasive plants, and they are normally restricted to undisturbed places where there is no ecological disturbance, because ecological disturbances create the space needed for the invasive species to arrive. Now we are entering that sacred grove, and here lot of our native endemic species are there. One or two we can have a look today, then I'll close this video. This begonia is endemic to Western Ghats because it grows on these laterite rocks without mud, some light, some kind of maybe some 2 mm layer of some organic matter may be there, and in these little crevices and all, it occurs like that. And then so this one is too fragile and delicate to cope with any kind of invasive species. This is the native species of Karnataka, but also it occurs in other states. So even here, if the population gets somewhat destroyed, it may be surviving somewhere else, but this one has to be conserved in its native region. It just can't go here and there and survive in new places. And if that species has to be saved, there is no choice but to do the in situ conservation of those places where they occur, like this sacred grove what I am now looking at. So this is a endemic plant that occurs only in this Western Ghats region. This type of begonia picta or something is called. Then this one is a native plant. It's one of the Dioscorea that has a wider range, not just this region of Western Ghats, but it has a wider range. You can see that little tube. Then invasive plants haven't arrived here inside this sacred grove because that much disturbance didn't happen. It's an undisturbed place. Therefore, all these begonia, even though they are so delicate and they have such a specialized life cycle and all, they still manage to survive happily as long as we protect these places. So I think I covered endemic species, native species, invasive, as well as naturalized, that is invasive that got naturalized.